Okay, in today's video we're going to be mixing some keyframe animation with some soft body physics, as you can see in this example. Let's jump in and get started. So to begin with, we're going to want to add a sphere, and we're going to want to change its type to hexahedron and drop the segments down to 16, and then maybe drop the radius to 60 as well. So now we've got a little bit less geometry, which is going to make it a little bit easier for the PC to handle the simulation. Now with this sphere selected, we're going to want to hold Alt and click on the cloner. So now we've got our sphere in the cloner, and change its mode to honeycomb and change the orientation to Y. And then I think we can add a couple more to the count on the width and height. And what we want to do is basically just bring these all closer together so they're a bit more snug. And we can actually just go in a bit of a higher view so we can just see and just kind of bring all the spheres a bit closer together. And we might as well just set up our camera whilst we're here. So if we select our camera, main camera, I'm going to change the focal length to 80 to begin with, and then just zero out the X, the Z, and then just zero out the rotation. Actually no, change the P to -90, and then we just want to kind of raise up this camera to create a frame. This will do. And then actually let's jump back into our cloner object, and we kind of want to just fill this frame out. So maybe we'll do 18 here. Maybe I'll try 20. Yeah, that looks good. Now with this cloner selected, if we right click and go down to simulation and add a balloon tag, we now have a cloth simulation on our cloner. So if we click play, you can see the spheres all just drop because gravity is now in effect, and we need to actually remove that. So with Control D, head over to our scene settings, simulation, and change the gravity to 0 because we don't need any of that. So now the spheres are all just going to kind of float there, won't do anything. So now we need to add a container for our spheres. So if we just add in a cube and use these handles to just kind of drag the dimensions of the cube to just kind of enclose the spheres that we have. And so that we can see the height, we can right click on our cube, go to render tags and display. And we want to check this top option, change the shading mode to lines, so now we can see how much depth we want to have for this cube. So now this is going to act as our container for the simulation. So if we want to right click on this cube, down to simulation again, and add a collider, and then change this collider side to back, and we want to turn the bounce off and the friction to 1. So if we go back into our balloon tag, let's turn off bendiness, stretchiness, friction can go off, and then let's just change the thickness to 1. And then we'll jump into balloon, and with this overpressure, we can turn this up to 1.8. And now if we click play, I think some of them are still trying to expand, which is probably why they're still vibrating, which is fine. What we can do actually is with Control D again, if we go into now simulation, we can turn this collision passes up to, let's do 60 for now, and maybe even add some extra iterations. We'll do 4, and then maybe damping to 3. Let's try that out. So it's not really making a change right now, but for when we animate our object going through all these spheres, then that's kind of where you're going to see the difference. So I actually want to smooth these out because right now they just look a bit jagged and it's not really a nice look. So with the cloner selected, holding Alt, we can just add a subdivision. So now these spheres are now all smoothed out, but the simulation is only really taking into consideration the original sphere. So if we turn off the subdivision, this is the geometry the computer is going to use to calculate everything, like calculate collisions and whatnot. So when we add this subdivision, it's not really changing the effect of the collision, it's just adding it on top to make it look nicer. So we can come out of lines mode with NA. So now we've got our spheres all colliding, and really squished together, which is what we want. So let's go back into our camera view, the top view. We might even, just for playback, we could turn this subdivision down to 1. Could just turn it off, that's fine, just for playback purposes so we can see it better. I might actually add a friction, so if we go up simulate forces, add a friction, maybe turn this up to 15. Hopefully this smooths things out just a little bit. So let's just get started on our animated object. So we'll come out of our camera and we'll add another sphere in. And we want to change the properties to the same as the rest of them, unless you want to do something different, but for this we're going to just have the same spheres, they're all the same. It will even have the subdivision on, but I'll add that in a little bit. So I had mine animating from kind of the top corner and it just kind of come across and then left the frame. So I'm going to put it up here and I'm going to jump into the coordinates. And we can select X and Z on frame 1, and then if we go forward to maybe like frame, let's try 16, we could bring it across here, maybe down a little bit. This could work. Let's add some keyframes. Let's go forward again, maybe 30, let's try that. We'll move that across, so it does like a kind of across the frame, across the center. Add some more keyframes, and then let's go right forward to like 52, and then just have it come down. That should be out of frame. And let's add keyframes. If we play that back, it does just zoom at the start. We could bring this forward just a little bit, but when we add the soft body simulation and it's colliding with all these other spheres, it does slow it down. So right now this is okay, this isn't too bad. But we do need to add that cloth simulation, so let's go back to the start. Let's go to our sphere and add the simulation balloon again. So we'll just turn all these off again like we did for the others. Let's turn the friction off, thickness to 1, back into the balloon, go 1.8. Now when I click play, you can see my sphere is getting caught with these other spheres, so I might go back to frame 1 and maybe just move him up kind of out. I think this should work still, so if I replace that keyframe, I'll replace this one, just slot it in, yeah, that works. Okay, that's fine. So now we've got our sphere set up ready to move, but it's not following our keyframed animation, which is what we want. It's just acting as a soft body like the rest of them. So what we need to do, if we go back to the start, go into our cloth tag and open up mix animation, and we want to check this with force, which is going to allow our shape to follow the keyframes that we've set. As you can see, just passing through all the spheres, following our keyframes. It's kind of a little bit off, it doesn't just follow it exactly, but it's because it's mixing that soft body simulation with the keyframe animation. I'm going to change the strength to, I'm going to try 3. So you can see it's really pulling it through now, a little bit closer. So I think the higher you go with the strength, so I could go with like 6. You can see it's following the keyframe line that we created way more like tightly. So we kind of want to find a sweet spot, which I think for me has been 3. Yeah, this looks okay. So the only thing is I need to add that subdivision on, because you can see it's creating these creases in the geometry. So if we select our sphere and hold Alt and add that subdivision, now it smooths it out. We can go to our other subdivision and turn that on as well. And we could even just add in a couple materials quickly. Might just make the first one do blue, up the roughness, and then I'll just duplicate that and change this one to orange. Go about there, that's good. So I'm going to make the clone spheres blue and the animated one orange, just so we can see which one's animating. So you can really see this effect now where our keyframed animation is mixing nicely with the soft body simulation. So it's this really nice effect. We could go back into our top camera and see what it looks like in frame. It's looking really nice. And you can always come back and change your keyframes, change the way you want it to go. If you want it going in a different direction or it's just doing something completely different, that doesn't matter. It's just going to apply that soft body over the top of it after. But yeah, it's a really nice effect. Now I guess to complete our scene, if we add a floor in, or maybe just something below, because I think it doesn't look too great at the moment, just looking underneath at the void. So we could add this plane in, just expand it so it fills up the frame. Maybe I might even just change the color of it to the same as the spheres, just to kind of make it all blend in a lot nicer. So, our container is actually appearing in the render, so we want to actually turn that off. We can just hold Alt and click these traffic lights so they go red, and now when we go into progressive rendering, we'll see it's not there anymore. So if we go back into our main control camera, and now you can see we've got our nice shot. We just need to adjust the lighting because it is very overexposed. So I'm going to select both of these, turn down the exposure. It's a nice saturated look, but not too bright. But yeah, this is looking really good now. Obviously you can expand on this and do extra things with it, but I'm just kind of showing you how the basic principles of mixing a keyframe into animation with soft body simulation works. But I think this is a nice way to kind of demonstrate it with the one object passing through the rest of them. I did actually record this video once before and it crashed right at the end because I switched into progressive rendering and the recording just crashed and I lost all the footage. So annoyingly, I do apologise if I skipped over anything too quickly. I think I was getting a little muddled up, but hopefully I covered everything that was needed. If you have any questions, just comment them down below. I'll do my best to answer what I can. But yeah, so that's really it for this tutorial. I hope that helped you understand a little better the power of mixing keyframed animation with cloth simulation. It's a really powerful tool. I'm actually using it in a couple of projects in my full-time job. I'll probably be posting those on here very shortly. But yeah, if you learned something new or enjoyed the video, please leave a like, it means so much. But yeah, I'll see you in the next one.